Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Mangg Plays the Best Games of All Time. Once again, we are basing this series off of the page on Wikipedia that you can look up, titled List of Video Games Considered the Best. It is an aggregate. Basically, they took a whole bunch of different lists of best games of all time from a bunch of journalists and things like that, and they just grabbed any game that was on at least six lists. And so, I mean, if these games are not great, a bunch of people are at fault. And so far, we have had more games that I consider not to be the best than not, or than that are. But that's because, we're doing this in year by year chronological order, and so a lot of these early games, I surmise, are put on lists either to pay respect due to their importance in video game history or pure nostalgia. You get these guys that were like 12, 13 years old in 1981, and they're like 37 now, and they just, those years don't add up. I know, however old they are now, or whenever these lists were made. I don't know. Anyways, but they just associate these like experiences of like being a kid in the arcade, coked up on coke and and Coke and pizza and just playing fucking Frogger, and they're fucking loving it, and it's just like the happiest time of their life, and it's just, well, Frogger's got to be one of the best games ever made. I love it. I love that time. I love when I played Frogger. Uh, you know, Nostalgia is a funny thing. Not saying that's what it is necessarily, but I think it could be a factor. But anyways, we're towards the tail section of the 1981 grouping of arcade games. There were seven games on this list in 1981. So that's a banger year as far as this list is concerned. All but one were released initially in the arcade. So this is definitely the most arcade heavy year. Um, After this, we start to get into more PC console stuff, but yeah. So this time we're going to be looking at Galaga. Galaga, I think, is sort of like the final form of the fixed shooter. So this sort of genre started with more or less Space Invaders. As far as just having a single screen, your player ship at the bottom, enemy ships and stuff towards the top, coming down towards you, and you just have to shoot to repel them. There's no real movement of the screen in any way. That's why it's a fixed shooter. It's just one screen, and there's some variations on that, but generally when you think of shoot 'em ups, you think of the screen scrolling either vertically or horizontally in order to progress through a level, encountering things along the way. So Space Invaders was sort of the initial version of that, and then we've had some, different variations on it, like Defender is not really a fixed shooter, but it's a similar kind of style. Centipede doesn't have sort of the same theming and space and stuff like that, but it's a fixed shooter. View at the bottom, stuff coming at you, screen stays the same. Galaxian 1979 does sort of similar stuff. And now we have Galaga. Certainly not the last fixed shooter or anything like that. I mean, they would still come out for years. But I think this is the most well-known fixed shooter of probably the 80s, I would say. As far as I can tell, there's no other fixed shooters on the list. Any shoot 'em ups we get to after this are all scrollers. So, yeah, this is the last best fixed shooter. And we're gonna see. I'm not gonna do a modern version of this because we basically already did that with the modern Space Invaders. It does not really do a whole lot with the formula that we haven't seen before. It's just like an evolution of it. It's sort of like Castle Wolfenstein to Doom, in a sense. Of just like, here's the framework, we know what this works, let's just make it better. Let's just make it look cooler, let's just make it smoother, let's just make it more exciting to play, but it's still the same basic framework. I actually went ahead and bought this version on Steam. Arcade game series Galaga. This was $4. Can you frickin' believe that? $4 for a... How old is this game now? Old. 41 years old? $4. And it's not anything special. I mean, this is literally just Galaga as it was in the arcade. That should be 99 cents at most. Should be like a quarter, really. But anyways, we bought it legitimately, so let's just give it a shot. It's probably going to be too loud, but we'll see. Start game. Alright, so you can already see, like, especially just comparing it to Space Invaders from, like, 2 years prior, the animation quality, the graphics, the colors, the speed and fluidity of everything across the board, including, like, just your firing. You don't have to wait for a shot to, like, dissipate before you can shoot another one. It's still not, like, the super rapid fire that we come to sort of expect with shoot 'em ups, but it's just overall so much nicer feeling than Space Invaders. And enemies are launching projectiles constantly, they're coming at you constantly. It's not just, here's your grid of enemies, kill them all. It does go through stages. I mean, there is a scrolling effect in the background, but you're not actually, nothing is moving. You can't even move forward or back, which is interesting, because Centipede you could do that, but those two came out the same year. They're launching some sort of suction attack. They sort of get bigger and smaller, sort of simulating this, like, 3D effect almost of getting closer to the screen a little bit. It's just very playable, you know. Challenging stage, here we go. You know, no power-ups, no nothing like that. Hold on, let me just... How to play. Press enter to fire missiles. Okay, I've been using spacebar. Boss sometimes uses a tractor beam to try to capture your fighter. One fighter will be lost if you get caught in the tractor beam. Defeating the boss will retrieve your captured fighter, which will join with your spacecraft to form a dual fighter. Interesting. More points are awarded for shooting aliens where they are attacking than when they are stationary. Bosses with escort ships grant more points when defeated. Okay. Oh, there's a rapid fire. That's not authentic, though. Can't use that. I'm just wondering what those symbols are in the lower right. But I guess it's not important. So, yeah, if I had hit every one, I would have gotten a big bonus. Yeah, this is definitely... Oh, that's your stage number, okay. A major focus of the era. Just get the most points. It's all about the high score. Because, you know, it's like... That's the competition. That was the competition aspect. You're either like... I don't even know how many multiplayer arcade games there were at this time, so the whole multiplayer aspect and why, you know, arcades function as a social thing was kids comparing high scores. So yeah, I mean, it's a... Oh, look at that. I mean, that is a kick-ass animation for this time. Compared to what we've been seeing, I mean, that is awesome. All the like, when they all explode, and it's just really great. But it's not... Fuck. Mechanically, you know, it's nothing, like, super revolutionary. Which is what I was trying to say. But it's a formula that works and would continue to work for years and years, just continually evolving. It's not a genre I've never really been interested in that much. But when I was in high school, they had, you know, you have the graphing calculators. And so we were always allowed to have graphing calculators. And you could just have that on you at all times, and, like, you know, no one would really say anything, because it's just like, yeah, okay. I mean, only, like, one class sometimes would use it, but, you know, you're sitting in, like, history class, and you pull out your graphing calculator. Shit. And, you know, kids would, like, pass games around and stuff, if you had the data cable. Of course, I had a data cable because I like to tinker with it. So you'd pass games around, and one of the big popular games in my high school was a game called Phoenix. Fuck. And Phoenix was just sort of a standard shoot-'em-up on a graphing calculator. Like, it was nothing fancy. It couldn't have that many things on screen at once. I think it had, like, upgrades between levels, like you go faster, or you shoot faster, or things like that, but it was not that complicated, but it was super popular. Like, anyone that had a graphing calculator played a little bit of Phoenix. I think I even, like, was tinkering with the code, because you could do that, and I put in my own cheat codes. And I remember people begging me to, like, you know, how do you access the cheat codes in your version of Phoenix? So that was cool. It's like intro to programming. So yeah, okay. I mean, it's Galaga. I think most people nowadays, younger people, the only way they've heard of Galaga is from the first Avengers movie. When Tony Stark calls out the guy on the shield carrier or whatever it's called for playing Galaga. So is it one of the best games of all time? Fuck. I'd still say no. And honestly, I think once we are done with this whole list, and I've played every game that people consider to be the best, I think my list is going to be pretty short among games that I actually say, like, yes, I agree, it's one of the best. Because a game, to be one of the best of all time, like, it really has to stand the test of time, right? It has to have been hot, or, it has to have been great when it came out. Not necessarily hot, but had to have been great. Then, and it has to be great now, where it's just like, wow, I can't believe this is still fun. There's still nothing really better than this in this sort of genre or subgenre or whatever. And even just sitting here and playing Galaga, it's like, there's a lot of things that I could think of that would just make this experience better. For me, personally. I mean, obviously, right? What else can I say? But, like, for me, personally, I'd rather have unlimited lives. Like, does that make the game better? I don't know. I've rarely thought, personally, that having limited lives improves a game. Or would improve a game. Elden Ring would not be better if you had 5 lives, and then you were done. It's just, like, no. I think, enemy variety could be improved, of course. Power-ups, I think, would improve it. Different bosses, stage, sort of obstacles and things like that. These could all be improvements. And these are all things that future games in the genre would wind up adding and improving on. And I know I seem to be kind of stuck on this mindset that's like, okay, if this is the best game, if Space Invaders is one of the best games ever made, then it has to be the best shoot-'em-up game, right? And there can't be any other shoot-'em-ups. But that's not really fair. Because, you can have 2 RPGs on this list. They don't necessarily have to be the best. Well, I mean, like, and we're gonna go through this every time. It's just what exactly qualifies a game to be the best. I want to look up just a definition on Merriam-Webster for best. Let's just try and get that out on the table. We can decide. For me, I would think like best means better than all of its peers. Ooh. Oh. Got a little dicky there. It's solid. I mean, it's a very solid game for what it is. And again, like, if I was young in 1981, this would have been fucking bee's knees. Let me just see. Best definition of the most excellent, effective, or desirable type or quality. To the highest degree, that which is the most excellent, outstanding, or desirable. To the highest degree. Excelling all others. Excelling all others. And I think if we just go by that, it's tough. Now this says here, list of video games that have been considered to be among the best of all time. So among the best. How much among it is? How many better shoot 'em up games are there than Space Invaders? How many better shoot 'em up games are there than Centipede or Galaga? I mean, if we just go down the rest of this list and I count shoot 'em ups, past Galaga, there's one, two, uh, uh, three probably, three. There should be four. I'm just missing where it is. Oh, there it is. Four. I think that's it. So there's four more shoot 'em ups on the list past this. Are they necessarily better? I don't know. They're newer. It's hard to say. Is Galaga the best fixed shooter of all time? Could we say that? Probably. Best fixed shooter. It's a very sort of... You're looking at a niche of a niche. Hmm. Well, I would say of the well-known games, of games that I have heard of, just looking at like a list of general stuff, yeah, I think we can say Galaga is probably the best fixed shooter shoot 'em up. In that case, then how can I not say it's one of the best of all time? If you take a subgenre of games, whatever it is, and say that this is the best example of that that we know of, then yeah, I mean it has to be, right? So I guess sure. We're giving Galaga the award. Which is interesting because I also gave Space Invaders the pass as well. Um, for being like that concept distilled down to its perfect elements. Whenever I think of something like that, I think of card games. I think of Dominion. Dominion was like the first example of deck building. Is that what they? Yeah, that's what they call it, right? Um, Deck building, where you start out with like, you know, 10 cards in your deck, and then throughout the course of the game, you add cards to your deck, again and again and again until at the end you have a full deck of very different cards from when you started, and you're trying to, like, get an engine going. The most common example that most people are familiar with is Slay the Spire. That is a deck building game. But Dominion was the first in 2008. And it's like the prototypical deck builder. Like it is the absolute like perfect distillation of deck building into its purest form. There's really no theming. There's no special stuff to it. It has expansions, which I have not played, which probably adds some things. But the base game, original, I mean, it's just like the purest form of deck building. Um, and so there's a charm to that, right? I mean, I just played Dominion again like a few weeks ago, and we had fun. And without like any expansions or anything like that, like Dominion itself was a fun game. And I think plenty of people would say Dominion is one of the best board slash card games ever made. And that is sort of Space Invaders. You know, the purest form of like the shoot 'em up genre. Um, but you know, loads of people have taken Dominion's concept and expanded upon it in so many different ways. I mean, deck building. If I went to this list here, deck, bag, and pool building. Um, BGG has 4,261 games that contain that mechanic. Um, and a bunch of them are much higher on the list than Dominion. Gloomhaven, Great Western Trail, Dune Imperium, Concordia, Clank, Mage Knight, Too Many Bones, Aeon's End. I mean, all of these are all higher rated than Dominion, but Dominion is still ranked 110. So, yeah, I guess if we say Space Invaders is to Dominion as Galaga is to, I don't know, Clank. um, like both are great games, just for kind of slightly different reasons. Space Invaders for its utter simplicity, Galaga for its kind of perfection of the fixed shooter subgenre. So there you go. I mean, I guess that's my arguments. Now, curiously, the next game we're going to be covered is also a shoot 'em up, although quite a bit different of a one. One that I have very little familiarity with. So we're gonna see that. We're gonna see sort of like a fork in the road off of Space Invaders with Galaga being on one end and our next game being on the other end. But anyways, there you go. That's Galaga. This game was probably not worth $4 for me, but my Steam library is growing with a bunch of these little like cheap ass weird games that I'm never gonna play again. All right, my name is Mangg. This has been Mangg Plays the Best Games of All Time with Galaga. I'll see you fine folks next time.